Hi, everyone. My name is Esther. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, thank you for watching today. I am here today with my best friend, Noemi. Um, thank you so much for being with me today. I'm so excited to have you on the channel.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I know I speak for everyone who knows you when I say you are a gift to our lives. So I am thrilled to have you here to talk. We talk every day. So this is nothing new. But for the viewers, how are you? What does life look like for you these days?
I am good. Um, Another Tuesday. Um, what am I into now? It's a quiet house today. Little baby, my son, my 3-year-old, is with his father, so very quiet. Um, Bittersweet. Miss him, but I also like this alone time, so I'll take
I love it. Hold on. I'm
it.
going to turn on my little light here. Okay. Um, so you mentioned your son, which we both know is the love of my life. um, and I have grown such an appreciation for you as a mom, from my mom and all the mothers I know who truly navigate motherhood with such grace. Um, Being a mom is 24/7, 365 for the rest of your life. Like, I think, like people say, oh, it's till they're 18 years old. That's not true because my mom still doesn't stop worrying about me. Um, so I say that to say it's a gift, but it's also a daily challenge. So between trying to give your all to someone, but to also leave some for yourself because you're still you, very much you. Um, how have you adjusted to being a mom? What has been the most challenging thing about motherhood? What has been the most rewarding thing about motherhood? And how have you learned not to lose yourself in your child?
Well, I remember being pregnant in Barnes and Nobles and just, what am I gonna do? I'm a new mom, wrote it in their books. And I remember picking out this one book. It's called Strong Mothers, Strong Sons. Can't
Mm,
remember the author, sorry. But early on when I had him, I started reading the book, and it was a lot of examples of already older kids, teenage kids, very few with toddlers or infants per se. But what I did grasp that everything that all of them had in common was just the understanding, and understanding my role as a mother and understanding their role as a child. And I mean, I was a child once, I still am a child, I'm my mother's daughter, so just understanding our roles and allowing just the emotions, understanding that they have emotions there, whether he's an infant, whether he's 3, he still has emotions. And I, as his mother, have to allow him to understand, to name what those emotions are. And I think knowing that and having read that from the beginning has really allowed me to know, okay, is he just having a tantrum, or
mm,
is something really bothering him? Being able to identify the different types of cries, and things of that nature. And honestly, if the most challenging for me is at this moment, if I can pinpoint it, is just not giving him all of my time at this
mm,
time, with work and with the chores in the house. You know, I have a new position at work, and to think about when I have to just run and pick him up from daycare, and when I come back, still have to, close out the day at work. And sometimes, he's pulling at my arm, and sometimes it's beyond 6:30. And that's the most challenging thing right now for me, where I feel like I don't give him the all of the time he should, get from
mhm,
me. Um, but in that, when I do have the time and I'm able to, this weekend, and I'm able to take him to the park or even in the garage, like the most simplest things makes him happy. And that's the most rewarding for me. Just seeing the way he has developed, how
mm,
um everything that I've instilled in him to this point, he is just beyond my expectations. Like when I see him um, grasp something new, or, say something, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is, I tell myself every day, this is the smallest I'll ever have him. And, just really soaking it all in, and understanding that, yeah, one day he'll grow up. But it's really rewarding and satisfying, to know that the work that I have put in hasn't gone in vain. And um, we can go the entire time talking about him, but we won't.
No, listen, I think one of my favorite things is to hear you talk about your son, because it just shows so much of who you are as a woman. Um, but speaking of you as a woman, I want you to talk about how you've learned not to lose yourself in raising your child, because I think that's so important, especially for new moms, and even for moms who've been momming for a while. It's hard. I would imagine, I'm not a mom, but when I observe, it's hard to like still try to be you while raising a child to be a fully functional adult and a good human being in this crazy world that we live in.
Honestly, taking breaks, like legit, just taking breaks, where I know where when it's overwhelming, um, and I'm blessed to be in this position where, while I am a single mother, his dad can have him. And
Mm,
so these moments where, yes, I miss him, but I can like regain strength and
yeah.
energy for
Yeah.
him for when I do get him back. Um, it's really all about being conscious of that, you know, what I instill in him, love,
Mm,
um, allowing him to understand his emotions. I also have to understand that for myself and know when it's time for a break,
mm-hmm.
because I don't ever want it to be where I'm disciplining him because I'm upset at something he did, or,
Mm,
I'm going about it the wrong way. And I know when it's time for a break. And that's not being selfish. That's understanding that, you want and you need to show your son that, or your child, that it's okay, that everyone, comes to a point where it's like, okay, I really do need this break. Give
right.
me a second, I'm gonna go
Mm-hmm.
take it, and then I'm gonna come back, and everything is gonna be okay. But just really being honest about that. And I think that's something that in this day and age should be something that's normalized. It's not like I have to be changed to my son. Like at the end of the day, I tell him, you don't control me, okay? I
Yeah.
am your mother. You live
Yes.
under my roof,
Yes.
and is being in control, and knowing when to take a break and knowing when to name the emotions. And that's what honestly has kept my cool. Sometimes he does just, gets me there, but I mean, I wouldn't be human or normal if he doesn't.
Right.
So
Right. For sure. So you mentioned that you are a single mom, and we've both been single for a few years now. But I feel like we are more and more coming into ourselves. Um, I saw a meme the other day that said, and I sent it to you, and I sent it to one of our best friends, that said, our 20s are not our prime, it's the primer. And I think that that has helped me, and I feel helped us to be unapologetic about um, the way we are, what we know we want, um,
Mhm.
and even how we are willing to deny ourselves the temporary pleasures of, you know, life, for companionship or for intimacy, because those things are easy, right? Like we can go out and get those things tonight if we really wanted them. Um, but that sacrifice for a relationship that is first godly,
Mhm.
and second, that is um edifying to not only myself, but to the people who come in contact with my relationship. I'm a firm believer that if your relationship is God-centered, that it will not only bless you, it will bless others. And so I have to imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so let me know if I'm wrong, that raising a little boy, because he's a little boy now, but he will become a man, and he will be an adult for most of his life. You get him as a little boy for, for 14, 15 years. And I have to imagine that raising him as a single mom teaches you yourself what about the man you want to be with. And so, and also the man you want around your child. So talk to me about what it's been like trusting God for your companion.
Ooh, I think I've sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna come to the conclusion that God, if you want me for you, all right, just have
right. But God, chill.
Right. Is wow, is that's a loaded question. Is this sometimes is just look at me speechless, can't even come up with the words. Because it's God knows my heart, God knows my heart. And he knows that at the end of the day, I mean, speaking for myself, I didn't decide to have a child to raise him alone, circumstances, with my son's father. And while we are at a great, relationship, my son's father and myself, we've came to that relationship by a lot of trial and error, by a lot of uncomfortable conversations, by a lot of pinpointing of where we went wrong. So maybe if you would have asked me this question months ago, even a year ago, my answer probably would have been completely different. But what this just set my eyes on is to continue trusting God, and in that he got me, and that he knows my life from the beginning to whenever it ends, and he's been in control since forever. He's the author of my life, and I know that he doesn't make any mistakes. While I've made mistakes, while I've potentially put a pause in my destiny, I know that when I've recognized, my faults, and I've come to Jesus Christ and came to his feet, God is always there. He's never failed me. And just, the verses in the Bible and the chapters in the Bible and the stories in the Bible where, lift me up at the times in need. And I just know to trust him. Like to this day, there hasn't been not one instance where God has failed me. And I just know that there's a time for everything. And right now, maybe it's not the time for me, to be in a relationship. I also think about, we want a relationship so bad, but are we truly ready? Like, are we ready to be that wife? Are we ready to be that girlfriend? And, it has to be looked on by both lenses, it can't just be looked upon one way. And how I trust God is because he hasn't failed me yet. And I know raising my son, I understand that I am his mother. I am not his father. And I can only do, like you mentioned, what I would want in a man, what I would want his future wife to have in him. And just thank God for the Bible and the Bible app too. Because if it wasn't for the Bible app, I wouldn't have come across so many verses. Like as a new believer, you sit there and you're like, okay, where do I even begin? And even if you're not a new believer, you're someone that's been walking, because granted, we're not new believers, but okay, where do we start exactly? And I've found that the plans right now in the Bible are just, when you look up a plan that's according to your life, and matches your walk. Like for example, right now I'm doing a plan called Praying Woman by Sheila Walsh. And this morning's devotional, it was about praying when you feel God is silent. And if I think about it, I'm like, God, are you silent in my relationship? Like to be with the man.
Right.
And it brought me to a passage in the Bible where it talks about the blind man in Jericho. is the
Mm-hmm.
city, if I'm saying it correctly,
Mm-hmm.
where he heard Jesus was passing and he's shouting, Son of David, have mercy on me. And people are like, shh. And he just screams louder, Son of David, have mercy on me. And when Jesus pauses and is like, what do you want? He says, I just want to be able to see. I want to see my sight. And what Jesus responds to him saying, your faith has saved you. And at that moment, no longer blind. Like that, reading that today just shocked me. Like it was one of those slaps. Like,
Yeah.
no, my faith will save me. And so just not questioning him, knowing that he has me in the palm of his hands and
Right.
believing him.
Right. That's so good. Even just like that, your faith has made you well. It makes a big difference when we try to make something work on our own. Like a relationship. We've been there, we've done that, and we have seen the result. It's our singleness. Versus trusting that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And, that's the season we both seem to, find ourselves in, trusting God for a godly man, trusting God to walk with us as we make decisions in our lives, even in our professional lives, which is where we both seem to coincidentally be at the same time. So you and I have been faced with this vaccine mandate being enforced in our workplaces. And, for such a time as this, we are reliant on God and exercising our faith to believe that whatever will be, will be. And like you said before, God's got us. God's got me. Like that has to be the attitude that we walk with day in and day out, because otherwise, I mean, we also see what that other side of the spectrum is to worry. And, which one of us has added an hour to our lives by worrying? So this time, this challenge with work, this challenge with trusting God for the next steps in your life as it pertains to being a provider, which is a difficult place to be at. How has such a time stretched your faith in God?
Tremendously. I came across, I find that my quickest method into falling into starting my relationship and coming back to my time with Jesus is through worship. And my goodness, all the songs that have just came out of Pandora and have been in my mind. And last night before I did my devotional, I came across this, it's in Spanish, but translating it's that, my problem will be the divine excuse that God will use for his glory. And that,
oh my goodness,
that when that came to my mind last night, when I tell you I slept like a baby.
Oh wait, you have to say that again.
Okay. My problem will be his divine excuse to show his glory.
And for the people in the back. Okay.
And that to me is what brings me peace, because there's no coincidence in anything. In anything. And God will show out. God will just show out, whether it's early on, in the middle, or at the very end when you feel like you're just at a fork in the road. God will show out, and I know it's just for his glory. And I just ask God to be that vessel, that regardless of what happens, whatever it is, God, you got me. And it is such an unfortunate time to be in, where you have to choose a mandate versus
providing for your family.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. To me, it's ridiculous. It's very unfair. And we're not going to get into that because, we're just not going to get into it. But, it's unfortunate. And I am going to stay strong in my beliefs and that I don't kneel to anyone but to Jesus Christ. And that is, if I have to die for it, that's what I'm going to die for. And that's something that, you think about it now and you're just like, okay, that's brave. But when you're, okay, let's say I lose my job, what's next? In those moments, I also know that that's when God really is just starts molding. And that I feel is where I'm at, where God is, I don't know what he's going to do with me. I really don't. Right. But I know that what my recent prayers have been is just, God, attract my heart to you. Attract my heart to you, because I just know that the more I lean on you, you're just going to do what you have to do. And that's just my trust. Like you said, we don't give ourselves an hour back of worrying. And I'm not going to begin now. Granted, our flesh is so quick. The little voices is just so like, oh, but here, and what's going to happen here, and how about this, and how about that. And we so quickly just, it's so much easier to go down that path than to just be like, you know what, God, I surrender. And that's where I'm at the point of surrender. God, there's no mistakes in you. Maybe this is my time to finally put the work and the efforts that I do for someone else to put it towards myself, and give myself the time to be with my son, the things that I think about. So God is good, and I'm going to continue to believe that. And I'm going to continue to, recite the verses that are in the Bible that tell me to recite it in times like these, so that God knows that, I'm here, and I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for whatever the next thing is, and whatever that is.
Absolutely. And, you said something so important about not knowing what's next, and being comfortable with that is uncomfortable, and I mentioned this in my first video with Mom, that, I'm reading this book called Crazy Faith by Pastor Mike Todd. And he said that he set out to be a crazy faith coach. And he's really become that for me, in the way that he's just broken down what faith looks like. And, learning in this season in my life right now, in conjunction with reading this book. And he says that the idea of being 100% sure of anything is overrated. And it's so true, because, we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what's going to happen next with anything. And, the truth of the matter is that I don't want to do anything without faith. Because even my little faith, like when God says have faith as a mustard seed, Jesus says a mustard seed, like a mustard seed is little. And even my little faith has big power. And we live in this like keep it 100 world. And many times you don't have 100. Many times you don't have 100% faith. And he goes on to detail in his book the 51%, and how 51% is enough. The same way that if a politician gets 51% of the votes, a politician doesn't need 100% of the votes to win. They need 51% of the votes, and they win the ballot. And that's what God asks for, that 51% of your faith. And that even if there is doubt in your heart, man, let that doubt sit at a cool 49% and elevate your faith to 51%, because faith at 51% says that even though I can't see the whole pathway, God, I trust you to take the next step. God, I trust that you got me. God, I trust that I'm just going to start walking anyway. And since God's word says that it's a lamp unto my feet, right? Like we spoke about this, God's word said it's a lamp unto my feet, not a light into my future, and how that is enough to take each next step, trusting that God is going to light the way as I continue to display my confidence in him. And one thing I've learned by reading this book, that and learned by living life is that faith grows as you learn more about God and his omniscience, the fact that
Mm,
he knows everything. And so I've decided to exercise my faith at 51% rather than at 100, and definitely over not having any faith at all,
mhm,
because I'm in this place where, I left my job September 1st, and I decided that I was going to live by a conviction that didn't follow the mandate. And so here I am, trusting God for every next step, for every day, for every month a bill comes my way. And
right.
he has not failed me yet. He does not know how to fail.
Mm-mm.
And my confidence is in a God who doesn't know how to fail. So he cannot fail me. And believing that God is who he says he is, believing that that the promises that God has shared with us are yes and amen, and that through my faith, I'm setting the foundation of a great move of God. We are setting the foundation
Right.
of a great move of God by believing,
Right.
by having faith. And just that, like, that place is crazy to be in, but it wouldn't be crazy faith, right? If we
Right.
didn't adjust to the fact that, man, listen, sometimes not knowing is all I got, God. That's where I'm at.
And that's what I've always said too, that it's like he craves for us to depend on him. So
Mm.
here is like, yeah, depend on me now. Put your money where your mouth is, you know?
Right, right. It's so easy to say you trust God when there's nothing to trust him with. But when it's time to trust,
Right.
where what are you believing him for? What are you,
Mhm.
like you said, put your money where your mouth is? Are the words matching the posture of your heart?
Right.
I'm so glad we had this conversation today.
Yes.
I'm encouraged by your faith in God. Um, you give me faith to borrow when I don't have any. And I hope that I do the same for you.
Absolutely.
And I just want to encourage everyone listening today, for such a time as this, strive for that 51%. In a world that says if you're not giving 100%, it's not enough, God says, give me your 51. Faith like a mustard seed, and I will increase it. And
Mm.
the thing about faith, like I said, uh, it's like a muscle. If you work it, it grows. Um, and that 51%, you'll see it grow to 60, and you'll see it grow to 70, and one day you'll see it grow to 100%. And when you come face to face with that mountain, that 100% will say, move,
Mm.
mountain, get out my way, and that mountain will be
Mhm.
moved. That is the promise
Ooh.
that God declares over our lives. So whatever
Amen.
mountain you are facing today, whether it be finances, a strained relationship, raising a child, your future plans, whatever it is under the sun that you are face to face with, and it might seem like a mountain that you cannot even begin to climb, just know that your faith pleases God, and that it's as simple as faith is better than no faith. Hope
Mm.
is better than no hope, and trusting God is the best decision you can make every single day. And so I want to encourage you all with that. I'm so blessed to have this time with my best friend. And until next time, see you all soon.
Bye.